Welcome to Houston Sports Talk with your host, Robert Land.
Thanks for checking into the best Houston sports podcast. And joining me is our favorite Rockets expert, Frank with Rockets Chop Shop. Check out his latest video breakdowns on the Rockets Chop Shop YouTube channel. And it's always great to see you, Frank. And man, I've got a little exercise that I want to do with you in this one. I want to make you kind of a combo coach general manager. Are you ready to be put in charge?
I'm ready to be Greg Popovich. Yes.
Yeah. The old school, both jobs here. And like a genie, I'm going to give you 3 wishes or really 3 changes, either as a coach or GM that you'd love to see the team make. Let's go one at a time. And I'll sort of react as we go along. What's your first one? What's number 1 for you?
Number 1 for me, and just real quick before we start, very funny that you kept my title up with Ben Dubose on the show. Thank you for that. Free advertising for the Chop Shop while I'm not on. But number 1 for me is definitely, if I'm the general, I'm going to sit in my general manager seat and I'm going with fixing our bench. Right now, Rafael Stone, I think that should be priority number 1 for him. Because the Rockets bench right now is, to me, the reason why we are not as good as we should be, even as poorly as we played in some of these road games. We all see it. When Alperen Sengun and the starters get off the court, most of the time, our starters are still, I think last time I checked, they were like the 11th or 12th best rated starting 5 in the NBA. Once they leave the court and those substitutions start coming in, everything falls off a cliff. And that's a big problem. It's a big problem because you actually have a viable team, in my opinion, and to have a bench lineup that features players that are all defensive focused is great because our defensive ratings are high, but some of the second lineups are just nasty. I've seen lineups with guys like Tate out there on the court, with Aaron Holiday, with Tari and Jeff Green, with maybe Jaylen Green out there. All the guys who are not doing great on offense right now. You can't win in the NBA with just off of grit and grind anymore. It's an offensive league, and if you're a high-powered offense, all you have to be is a average defense to win. But if you're a elite defense and you have a middle-of-the-pack offense, it's going to be really, really hard. The margins are very thin. So I'm addressing the backup big situation. I think that's number 1. The Rockets can't do anything without Alperen Sengun. I think getting another big that will be a screener for our guards to create space for Fred VanVleet, who cannot generate his own space, for Jaylen Green, surprisingly, who cannot generate his own space, for some of those small guards we have. Get us another big that gives us a different look. And on a defensive end, a guy that can rebound. I also think we need to add shooting. So I'm looking at some bench shooting out there. I think our starting 5 is fine, but give me shooters off the bench that are able to add some spacing in that second lineup. So if I want to feature Jaylen or Sengun out there, there's actually something they could play towards, because running a 2-man game and kicking the ball out to Tate is a dead end, in my opinion. And I think the most important thing right now, along with the big man, is we need another guard that can handle the rock. Jaylen, as much as we all hope he will be that second guard, he's not ready for that. And I haven't seen any indications that he's actually improved in his ball handling. In fact, it seems like his ball handling is reverted. I don't know if he's having a hard time translating to Ime Udoka's system, but he's not fulfilling that role of being that second guard that's going to be, with the twos. So give me a guy that maybe Jaylen could play off ball, or if you're going to put him on ball, give me a guy that could help slow him down and pace him like Fred does with the starting 5 when he's not feeling it. So that'll be the first thing I want to fix is our bench depth, because I actually feel the Rockets are showing signs of a team that's viable. Not saying we're going to win a championship, but I think you don't want to waste years of young guys getting real experience and being in a winning situation. Now, I would hate for us to be a 30-win team because we have a bad roster, and that's on Rafael Stone.
Well, you packed a lot into your first one, and I've got like 14 different ways to go for it. First of all, you want a big that can, roll to the basket, that's good defensively. Maybe they could shoot a little bit.
Maybe, yeah.
Rebound, shoot, yeah. So Brook Lopez, you want Brook Lopez? I think that's the funny thing is Rafael Stone went out there and tried to get that guy, and the thing is, I know a lot of people say go out and get that guy. The problem is I go around the NBA, and they're way harder to find than you think. I think a lot of people want Clint Capella, but Clint Capella is not the Clint Capella of 5 years ago. He is now a declining player, and he's also expensive. And if you're the Rockets, I don't know if you want or can afford to bring in a guy that's making a ton of money and say, okay, we need you to do this, and you're going to be coming off the bench, and you might only get 20 minutes, and some nights you might get 10 minutes. So I think on that issue that you said, I would love for them to find that guy, but I've looked around. It's a lot easier said than done. The problem is there's so many teams competing right now for the playoffs. There's not all the tanking that we usually see. There's not all the bottom dwellers. It's hard to find those particular guys because you don't have as many people that want to trade. Because if they have a guy like that, Frank, the issue is they don't want to trade for him. And the thing with the guy that can shoot off the bench, again, Rafael Stone had that guy. His name was Kevin Porter. And we can go through the Kevin Porter mess all we want to, but at least you and I both agreed that he wouldn't be a bad guy off the bench before the season started. And then that thing fell apart. And when that falls apart right before the season, it's hard to go out and make that particular trade immediately. Now you're stuck because teams, you've got to wait a few months because if they sign somebody, you got to wait till that period. People want to find out what they have because they've already set everything else up. So that's difficult. My issue with the bench right now is the Fred VanVleet getting 40 minutes a game. And that's way, way, way too much for Fred VanVleet, Frank. But the problem is that you got Aaron Holiday that's fine, but it seems like everything goes to crap when VanVleet's not. I mean, I think VanVleet, everybody's talking about Sengun's the most valuable Rocket right now. I'm of the belief that Fred VanVleet is actually the most valuable Rocket because it seems like you cannot take him off the court or it's an issue. So I don't know how to fix this because you're kind of stuck. And I think they also want to leave. They've been wanting to leave room the last month to see what you actually have with Amen Thompson. Like, what can he bring? Can he be the third guy? Now I think Rockets fans think, oh, he comes back in. Well, that solves your bench problems. But your bench problems also have to do with points. You need points. And Amen Thompson can't shoot. It's going to be a long time before he can shoot. It's going to be a long time before he's going to be a good scorer. I think he's going to help your defense at the guard position coming off the bench, Frank. But that's the problem. I would love to fix all that as a genie for you, but it's hard.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said, except as far as the big man, I don't think there's a player that will provide all of that. I'm actually okay with just give me at least, if you're going to give me a stretch big, that's fine. But I would even take a guy that can't shoot. You know, I know I've heard of names like Daniel Gafford over in Washington. I think a player of that archetype, just giving you a different look. I think most importantly, just rebounding. The Rockets are giving up a lot of second chance points to a lot of teams, and it's really hurting our defense. To me, having a big man that could screen and roll gives the Amen Thompsons, Jaylen Green to a lesser extent, even Fred, another player that's not Alperen Sengun that creates space for them, which is what we lack. We don't have a player right now on our team that could go get their own shot without getting a screen, which is a very important skill set to have in the NBA. You would expect Jaylen to be that player, but his skill set hasn't reached that point yet. You know, I'm getting a little worried is when is that leap going to come for him to be the guy that the Rockets need him to be? Because I think one of the biggest holes we have right now is his ability to score on a consistent basis. I'm okay with him, showing flashes, but you can't keep flashing 3, 4, 5 years into your career. Then people are just going to say you're inconsistent. So there's a big hole there. And I think having another mini kind of Sengun 2-man game that's not Sengun, so he could rest and not play 39 minutes a game, along with Fred playing 40s minute a game, I think will be helpful. And I do agree with you. I think Fred is very important, but I just think Fred also relies heavily on Alperen Sengun because when Sengun is not on the court with him, he is not very good because he has the issue that I'm describing of trying to generate his own shots, and that's not Fred's game. So I think, Stone, like you said, Kevin Porter, he tried to get, but hey, this is the NBA. He's competing against other general managers. I know they can't do anything till all these contracts are aggregated, mid-December. Then teams start making moves. You want to wait to see, even the buyout market gets closer as you get closer to the deadline. All that happens, and you can start making some moves and seeing what falls off of teams. But I would hate for this season to be wasted because we're relying on Amen Thompson and Cam Whitmore to do stuff. That's not to me a recipe for a team that's trying to make a play-in or playoffs.
Yeah, two things on the rebounding. Number one, Tari Eason has either not played or he's been limited. He's one of your best rebounders. He was incredible last year. He still hasn't played, I think, more than 20 minutes. I'm of the belief he needs to be bumped up to 25 or 30 minutes. And I know that coach is going to see some things that he does that are stupid. But every time I look at the box score at the end of the night, Tari Eason's in the plus. Like, it's unbelievable that he's leading. I think he's leading the team right now in plus minus, and it's not like we've been playing well over it. We're under 500 since he's been back.
He might lead the NBA. I'm not even joking. I think for a certain minutes of players, I think he might be either 1 or 2 or 3 in NBA in plus minus.
Amen Thompson's going to help you with rebounding too, because you don't have any rebounding at the guard position. Fred VanVleet, for all that he does do, he's terrible rebounder for a guard. Jaylen Green's been bad as a guard rebounder. He's been better this year.
He's been better lately.
He's raised his rebound rate to 1, but he, for his athleticism and for everything, this has been a complaint of mine for a long time. He probably should have 8 or 10 if you're out there for 30 minutes and you're Jaylen Green athlete or whatever. But Amen and Tari Eason definitely can help you in those scenarios. And I just feel like a lot of the stuff that's happening with the Rockets being too small and getting out rebounded has been the lack of Tari in it, because I wanted to see Tari 30 minutes a game. The issue that the Rockets will always have with Sengun and Jabari Smith is I don't think either one of them are ever going to be plus bigs for rebounding. They have physical limitations that and also instinctual limitations. Their instincts aren't always great when it comes to rebounding, and you've got to have one of those two things in your bag as far as elements of being a great rebounder. I think Jabari's going to get better because he'll get better as the years go forward. Sengun's just got to get better at boxing out and stuff like that. That's stuff that you can do to help you out on the margins. But I think Tari Eason, just his instincts are incredible. And Amen Thompson, his athleticism and instincts are also incredible. And I think those two are going to help. I'm sure you agree with. Let's go to number 2. Let's go to your second thing that you think, as the genie would give you a wish, what would be your number 2 deal?
My number 2 thing would be the Rockets' offensive play style. Right now, I feel like they are running way too many pick and rolls. And when there's, to me, a lot more diversity that they could use in the offense, especially not only with Alperen Sengun. And I know they're very heavily relying on those actions because they're trying to maximize what Fred can do, what Alperen can do. And even Jaylen also runs a lot of pick and rolls with Alp. But I'd like to see more Jabari Smith being involved in 2-man game with Alperen Sengun, Jabari Smith being used out of the post. One of the great developments from this season is Jabari's ability to actually hit that little mid-range turnaround jumper he has. And it seems like it's coming around to being very consistent for him. And I feel like the Rockets need to exploit that. And Ime Udoka alluded to this. I forgot where I saw the interview, but where he said that he understands that they may have to play inside out, even though it's an old school philosophy. You just have to do what you have. And right now on the perimeter, the Rockets don't have any elite perimeter players. Two of your best offensive players are bigs, right? Sengun and right now Jabari Smith. In that case, I would try to force the issue by using Jabari and Sengun as interior hubs to generate offense. We already know what Sengun could do when he gets in the post. Teams start doubling. The Rockets need to play off of that. They're still lazy in their off-ball movement when he's posting up. Seems like the same thing that we suffered under Steven Silas. I'd like to see more creativity on the off-ball actions, whether it's screening and cutting while he's posting up, and then get Jabari mismatches. Get him more mismatches and make that intentional so that we could exploit his height over smaller players. And the fact that he's shooting damn near, I forgot when I checked, it was like mid-50s from the mid-range. That's a way to not have him just standing out there as just a catch-and-shoot guy. So use that more and let the guards play off of that. And this leads into my third thing, but I'm not going to say it now, but I just feel like we are too perimeter oriented when the talent isn't there right now. If Udoka is going to be true to his word, then I do expect him to go more interior and then generate out. And for Rockets fans, if you're old enough, you've seen that before with Hakeem Olajuwon. You can win, to me, in any era playing, because the purpose of generating good offense is generating a double team, right? Skewing the defense enough where you can have them commit an extra player to your offensive player and then from there cause the breakdown of the defense. It doesn't matter where you get it from, whether it's from James Harden attacking the post, or it's Steph Curry drawing guys out to the three-point line where they're trapping him, or a big man posting up and just killing you. We see other teams do it. I mean, elite bigs like Embiid, Jokic, and all these other guys. Hey, use the tools you have, play inside, kick it out, and just add that wrinkle. You could still run half pick and rolls, but we are entirely too pick and roll dependent, in my opinion. So I'd love them to focus more on our front court and generate out of there than on all these backcourt plays and letting Jaylen and Fred just chuck up shots.
Yeah, Frank, it's been a complaint of mine. I've said it. I talked about it with Ben Dubose last week. It's a real bone of contention with me that Jabari Smith, when they go to Sengun's out of the lineup, Jabari Smith should be in the post. He's money in the mid-range. You look at his shooting percentage, it's so much better. It's exactly what you want from him. You know, of course, you would always want it to be better, but shooting whatever, 36, 37% from three, 50% from the field. And it just dumbfounds me that, you know, Jaylen Green's picked second, and then they treat him like year after year after year, like he can screw up as many times as he wants. He can miss as many shots in a row. He can foul up, you know, pick and rolls. He can foul up one-on-ones. He can do all these mistakes, but Jabari doesn't get that opportunity. Like, Jabari should be getting the ball. Jabari Smith, and let me make this very clear to anybody that's listening, Frank, and feel free to disagree with me. He is going to be a much more efficient player when all is said and done than Jaylen Green. You're going to want him to shoot the ball more than Jaylen Green when all is said and done. And Jabari Smith does not have any difficulty getting his shot off. I know people think, well, he doesn't have these moves and athleticism, but he's 6'11" and he's got a high release. There's not the issue. Jaylen Green has got to work his tail off just to get a shot up. And until I don't understand how the Rockets don't see the fact that like you have to develop Jabari Smith just as much as you have to develop Jaylen Green. He should not be an afterthought.
I'm not going to fully agree as far as I do agree, actually. I think just by Jabari's play style, he is going to be more efficient, right? Because like you've seen it before, the power forward role, whether it's guys like Rasheed Wallace and or some of these Kevin Garnett, all these big forwards, they're just efficient. That's what they do because they're tall. They get to their spots, and there's really not much you could do to stop them. And the league has gone away from that style of play. They want to stretch everything, but it's just like fashion. Everything comes back around, and I feel like for Jabari and there's a lot of guys that are coming back in the league at that kind of mid post area that they could work out of. I think that as he gets bigger, stronger, that post up gets more effective, where he can punish all sorts of players. He's made a big step this year for me. Last year, we've seen guys like Steph Curry push him off his spot. I think Udoka working with him has shown him that you're too big to be playing that small. And he's using his frame and his body better in the post this year. It's really good for me to see the development I've seen. I've never really worried about his offense. My thing was his defense. That's what I've been disappointed in this year, and he's picking that up a little bit. But I totally agree. I feel like, and if you want, I could tell you my third point right now.
Yeah. Go ahead with the third one.
They need to decrease Jaylen's role and increase Jabari's. And what I mean by that is what you kind of just stole it from me. I think that they are prioritizing Jaylen's development to the detriment of the team at this point. I feel like he is at a level where he's shown he's not ready for that mantle to be the number one offensive option on a team that's trying to win games. And that is perfectly fine. For a young guard, he's 21 years old. I'm perfectly okay with that. What I'm not perfectly okay with is the Rockets jeopardizing their entire team for that sake. That's something a tanking team would do. We're not tanking anymore. So at this point, there are other players out there. You have champions in Fred VanVleet out there. You have up and rising stars in Alperen Sengun, other high draft picks that need development in Jabari Smith. They need to kind of scale back Jaylen's role and treat him like he's actually playing right now. And I think that if I had a hierarchy of offensive priority, number one is Sengun, because I think he is by and large our best player. Fred may be our most important. I think Sengun is our best player right now. And the way you use a big man is not that he gets 30 shots a game, but he should touch the ball because he's your hub. Number two is going to be 2A and 2B. I think Jaylen and Jabari should have the same amount of reps, same opportunities to be able to initiate out of their offensive styles. And I just feel like we're too much Jaylen right now. I know Udoka's trying to get him going. I get the politics behind a number 2 pick, but like you said, Jabari's a number 3 pick. So he should get the same priority in the offensive system as a Jaylen Green, because right now the way they're grooming him is like he's going to be a role player, which he very well may be. But I also want to know, what does he look like on higher usage? And I've come around to this. I at first, when he was playing bad, I was like, okay, you don't have to force him to take more shots if he's playing bad. When a guy starts feeling it, give him the shots. Give him the shots. Let's see. He went 4 for 7, I think, in the last game. I want to see Jabari, give him 15 shots. Let's see what happens. Give him 20 shots. Let's see what happens. If he goes 4 for 20, okay, then you can scale back. But we don't know right now because he doesn't have the opportunity. And if I was a coach, I'm really scaling back on Jaylen Green and giving Jabari Smith some of those reps. But you might just unlock a different level of your team's offense by doing that.
Yeah, to me, the biggest crime of Udoka so far is that Jabari Smith has half an attempt more per game than Dillon Brooks. And one of my arguments was I had no problem with the Dillon Brooks deal is he's gonna work with Udoka, and Udoka's gonna say, all right, we brought you here, but these 3 guys need to get shots because they're young and we think they're the future and we think they've got an incredible upside. We love what you do. You do the defense stuff. You do when you're open, I want you to shoot. At the beginning of the year, he was taking a lot of shots, and I got it because the other guys were finding their way. It's gotten better. It's gotten better with that.
It has.
The unfortunate part to that, though, just a side note, is that his defense has not been good at all recently. Dillon Brooks has been bad defensively. I don't know what's happened with the fouls. Early in his career, you would see the foul per game up, and it had gone down over the years. He was, I think, closer to 3.5 or 4 last year, but that's gone up. That's a whole other story. But Dillon Brooks's defense, as the shots have gone down, his defense isn't in, and that concerns me. Like, can you stay engaged defensively without thinking that you can just take every shot? And Jabari is, there are times where I just want to kill him because Sengun's not on the court, Frank. He's not on the court. Jabari's on the court, and they've got him stuck in the PJ Tucker corner. And I'm like, who do you think is the offense on this team if Sengun's not on the floor? It's not one-on-one Fred VanVleet. It's not Jaylen Green, because sometimes Jaylen Green isn't even on the floor when this stuff is going on. So, and I'm sorry, I've kind of rehashed this because I've talked about this in another show, but that's one of the big issues for me is, like Udoka said, when he came in, guys were going to be held accountable. Well, Jaylen Green doesn't seem to be held accountable. And then when Jabari gets better, there's no reward for him of like, hey, you deserve more shots because we're seeing you're getting better defensively. You're getting better offensively. And I'm disappointed. Now it's a short span, and I'm going to give Udoka some more time.
Yeah.
But this is Steven Silas stuff for me. This is Steven Silas crime right now.
I would give him more time. One thing I've seen about Ime is that he pivots fairly quickly. Maybe we see things a little faster as fans that watch the games, and obviously the coaches, they don't react. They most coaches won't make a drastic change in their game plan or what they want to do just because of 5 games or 6 games. I think as Jabari shows more consistency, those touches will come. But Ime Udoka is an old school coach. He's going to lean on his vets a lot. For the young guys, you just have to prove to them beyond a reasonable doubt. The Jaylen Green thing, I think, is more of he understands, and they need Jaylen terribly. Like, he is one of the few players on our team that has the athletic ability to get a paint touch whenever he wants. It's just that the mental aggression isn't there, and his skill set doesn't allow him to do so all the time. But they need him because we don't have a lot of guys like that on the roster. Most of our players are utility players or their skill, not a lot of just great athletes that could break down the defense. And when Jaylen plays passively, it really does kind of mess up our offense. So I think Udoka's playing the long game with that, because I don't think he's as worried about Jabari Smith as he is about Jaylen. And I understand that. I'm not worried about Jabari. I know Jabari is going to be fine. He's made of the right mental stuff. I have never questioned Jabari's mental makeup. Now, his skill, yes, he was bad last year. He struggles a lot of things, but at some point, just the way he's mentally built, the kid is going to learn, and he wants to be great, and he puts in the work and blah, blah, blah. For Jaylen, I don't know. There's some games where I'm like, man, does this guy really want it? So I don't know what Udoka sees, but I think they're trying to nudge him into that role. So it does look like he's getting a little favoritism. I guarantee you, sir, if this trend for Jaylen continues, I will see you will see him start to decrease in the features on the team, because you can't reconcile those two things with winning games. And I know Udoka is all about winning, but he's also a coach that's trying to develop players. So in the short term, I think you'll see this, and I think it's the right move. I'm with you. Yeah, I would just, Jaylen, you're going to sit down but I think that he's trying to push him to a spot where he's able to get the best out of him in the long term. I think Jaylen gets this year to do that, the whole season. If he comes back next year doing the same thing, then I think the Rockets are going to move on. As far as features, they might not trade him or anything, but he's not going to be the guy you bank on. Maybe you start grooming a Cam Whitmore, or you go out and go get a veteran scorer that could play that two-guard role and give you a real two-man game with Alperen Sengun that's more efficient, that's going to generate higher points and leverage Sengun's skill set. Because right now, Jaylen is just not delivering. And I'm not moved by the outburst of 30-point games here and there. That's cool, man. He was doing that his rookie year. That's fine. We're at the point where I just need him to do his job on a night-to-night basis. If you can't do your job on a night-to-night basis, then you're just streaky. And in the NBA, streaky won't get you paid. So
and look, Frank, do they need him? Because they just drafted a guy that basically is Jaylen Green, but he already looks better potentially defensively. And I know he's got to learn rotations and he's got to learn all that stuff, but physically he's bigger. He's, he gets steals. He has better instincts, like to get in lanes and do that. He can handle switches better because of his size and the way his body shape is. And he can rebound better. We've seen from Cam Whitmore, he's not afraid to get in there and rebound, unlike Jaylen. He's not afraid to, get his hands on basketballs and cause turnovers and be active in lanes and stuff like that. Jaylen doing a little bit more, but still, like he's way behind the 8 ball 3 years into his existence. Will he be better at finishing than Jaylen? Right now, it's not hard to be better at finishing than Jaylen. Jaylen's terrible at finishing. Jaylen, we've gone through it ad nauseum, but the guy refuses to do a floater, and he thinks that the only way I can go in there is make one of these like crazy layups, over two guys, or try to dunk it in some guy's face that he ends up getting blocked or hit the rim a lot of the time too. And everybody on the certain social media app gets excited and they throw up a shot when he makes one of those dunks. But, doing that once every 10 games, it's not good enough. When you're not finishing well around, you're one of the worst guys at finishing around the basket. So, Frank, I trust that Udoka is seeing something where he's scared to put Cam Whitmore out there. But it's harder and harder for me to say that Cam Whitmore isn't a better option when Jaylen is doing the stuff that he does on a game. And really, when we have road games, Frank, can Cam really be worse than Jaylen road Jaylen? Road Jaylen Green's terrible.
Yeah, I can't argue that point. They do need Jaylen. We've invested too much not to pivot this early. And it might be a political answer, but I think you have to do your due diligence as a franchise to make sure that he has every opportunity to show that he can take that mantle in the long term. Because once again, you look in that draft, there's other players you could have drafted. Not even that. You've given him the developmental capital that could have went to other players at his position and on the team. So the Rockets kind of want him to succeed. And I'm with them. Like, if Jaylen Green succeeds as a player, we are all better for it. And I love the two-man chemistry him and Sengun have. So there's something there. My biggest issue with him is not even the weaknesses he has right now, is just the mental approach to like the road thing, like his passivity in certain games, how he disappears in certain moments during the game. It does make me question his long-term like makeup as a player. But with Cam Whitmore, I agree. I'm with you. Like, I think next year Cam is going to be right on his tail. I don't see why Cam is not playing right now. I cannot lie and say that there's I don't know why he doesn't play, because to me,
5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes
to see what he does. Yeah. Yeah, I think even just seeing whether he's going to, I mean, we're losing some games. Like if you're going to bring in Jacques Landale, hell, I mean, that Cam's definitely, if Jock Landale can see first quarter minutes this season, then I think Cam Whitmore can too. So I'm not sure what Udoka's thing is there. I don't know if he's scared to open that genie up, because if Cam comes in and has a good game, man, it's going to really start a narrative within the fan base. I don't know.
What if Jaylen needs that? He might need
Yeah,
a
no, I
guy
agree.
on his butt.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I'm all for it. Like I think that right now there's no competition at his position. Sengun either, but to me, it's just that two guard spot is a big gaping hole on our team right now, because that's your scorer, and we just don't have that being filled right now by anybody. We don't have any two guards on the roster that can come in and give you buckets. Like we don't have any bucket getters at that position, and it's going to be an issue for the Rockets, and that may be something they need to look at in getting in free agency this summer or by trade as early as this season.
Yeah, I just want everybody out there that says, well, yeah, but Jaylen had Silas for the last 3 years, and Jaylen, he came out of the G League, and Jaylen, never had a direction, and Jaylen's never had any this or Alperen Sengun was drafted the same time that Jaylen Green was. Alperen Sengun had 2 years of Steven Silas. We've seen Alperen Sengun develop. We've seen him every single year. His PER has gone up. His percentages have gone up. His numbers have gone up. His IQ has gone up. He learns. He develops. He gets better. Why can't Jaylen Green do that? What's the difference? And guess what? Those guys are the same. Don't tell me about his age. Don't tell me about Steven Silas. Don't tell me all that stuff. They both were in the same pool. And one guy got to the deep end, and the other guy is still dog paddling in 3 feet. It's just unreal.
Yeah, it's going to be. I mean, that's going to be a storyline going forward for the Rockets, is Jaylen's performance. And once again, like, he might go out and drop 40 points. I really don't care at this point. I just want consistency out of him. I think that's where we're at with Jaylen Green is, can you just do your job on a night-to-night basis? And his job isn't to be this 30-point per game scorer. It's just make your shots, make your open shots, hustle on defense, rebound, make the right reads you're supposed to make, and just be a good player on a team that's trying to win games. And I think that's really where he needs to get to. Mentally, I'm concerned about his mental approach to basketball. Like you said, the progression on the reads has been kind of delayed. His aggression and want to on the offensive side for a guy that's a scorer. Usually, if you have a scorer, you don't have to tell him go get a bucket. Like, those guys there, you got to tell them scale back. And the fact that you have to encourage Jaylen to go score is kind of weird to me, really, because, even guys that are coming off the bench, they try to compare him to players like, what's the kid over in Utah that came from the Lakers? He's a Filipino too. Whoever his name is, they try to compare them to, but he can score. Like, he can score off the bench. He can go get a bucket. Jaylen is just an anomaly to me as a player, and I really don't understand what goes on in his mind, but I think a lot of his issues are mental. It's like people compare Jaylen to Devin Booker. Devin Booker is a player that is a son of an NBA player. He's not a great athlete. What he does, though, is he can get a bucket in the post. He can play off the glass. Devin Booker can finish. He can shoot. He can hit his open shots. He can come off screens. And he was doing that as a rookie. Those comparisons really fall through because Jaylen lacks a lot of skills. And it's going to be interesting to see how Udoka kind of tries to push the right buttons with these players. I know he has a plan for all of them. But for Jaylen being the highest pick the Rockets have, he's just going to have more capital. And that's okay with me. Like, let him work it out. And if he can't work it out, then you lowball him on a contract and just hope that he can be a contributor to your team. And if he does develop into that star player or becomes that shooting guard that's a starter level, that's actually a near all-star, then you've won. If he doesn't, then you have Cam Whitmore, you have Amen Thompson, and you have other players. You're going to have cap space once Fred VanVleet and not Dylan Brooks is guaranteed, but you have the ability to go get other players. You have some picks are going to be available. So right now, the best thing for the Rockets, Robert, is that Alperen Sengun is flashing the way he is, because to me that buffers Jaylen Green up or down a little bit. If Jaylen Green turns out to be not the player we thought he was, your 16th pick actually hit. So that helps you out. So you're not taking a major loss out of that draft class. I think Jabari Smith is going to be something. So I still think the Rockets are in a good position, regardless of what happens with Jaylen, because of Alperen Sengun's emergence as a near all-star player as a 21-year-old.
What's your favorite stuff that you put up on Rockets Chop Shop? I know you had a whole thing. Like, I'm sure that people can go over and just get an extended idea of what's going on with Jaylen. I know you did that, but is there anything else that you're going to tell people about?
We had, just like you just said, the Jaylen thing, just kind of talking about some of my concerns about him and asking the question, should we be worried or concerned about his play? If I had a concern meter on a scale of 10, I'll be at a 6 right now for him. We have the OKC game coming up. I'm going to break that down. Hopefully get a win there. And then I'm going to, in the break that the Rockets have, this extended break for the in-season tournament, I'll do a deep dive on Alperen Sengun and just to look at some of the areas he's improved on this season. I think Rockets fans I know Jaylen and all this stuff gets a lot of the air in the room, but we are literally watching one of our young guys emerge as a star in the NBA. I know Alperen has a lot of limitations in different aspects of his game, but what you're seeing from him on a nightly basis is not normal. And I want people to really understand what you're watching, that it is something special happening, and he's only 21. He might not get taller, but he's going to get smarter. He's going to have more experience. So what does that look like as a 23, 24, 25-year-old that has 5-6 years in the NBA? What does that look like after 3-4 summers of working out in Santa Barbara, California, and locking yourself in the gym like he said he did on the Paul George interview? What does 5 years of that look like when you build, when Jabari is better, when you bring in actual shooters around him? So I just want fans to really focus on that, because I feel like it's not getting enough love from the fan base. People are too busy bickering about potential defensive liabilities when they're in the championship game. Let's just get to the play-in first before we get all there. But I'm really excited about his development and Jabari's and even Jaylen's going forward. I think we're in a good spot.
Sounds great. Looking forward to some more good stuff, some more good development from the Rockets. And I guess I'll be watching some of these play. They've suckered me into these in-season
those
tournament
games were good,
games.
man. You're tripping. Those were good. Those were some exciting games last night. Yeah.
Yeah, that Halliburton stuff was real. Like, he's legit. And that was incredible stuff. Thanks so much for doing this, Frank.
All right, no problem, brother.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.
Hey, don't forget to support us by subscribing and commenting on YouTube. You can always listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or your favorite podcast app. Tell your friends about us and share our show links on social media. Spread the word, everybody. Thanks for listening.